recruiting analyst. Hank South does an outstanding job for BOL, part of the 247sports.com network. Hank, how you doing on this Monday morning?
I'm doing good, Travis. How about you?
Cannot complain. I know, once again, it's been incredibly busy for you, which I'm still having a hard time getting my head around official visits in early June, but that has been the case for the Alabama Crimson Tide here in the last week. To combine that with ongoing camps over off Bryant Drive, it is an incredibly bustling time of year for you. But let's get going with a couple of commitments that have gone down since we last spoke. Damieon George, the offensive lineman from Houston, Texas, first. Your thoughts on George and what he brings to the table from the offensive line perspective, and also the connection that he has with a teammate that obviously Alabama is very much interested in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at Damieon George and his commitment to Alabama, the sky is the limit. This is a kid, and we wrote about it, I think, on Thursday. He just turned 16. And you look at, his size already and kind of where he's at in his development, and it's just going to keep trending up for him. It's kind of a year where Alabama signed an elite offensive line class in 2019 with guys like Evan Neal and Pierce Quick and Darren Duckworth, all those guys that could come in and, compete early. The guys they're getting in 2020 so far are guys, that you can probably work with for a little bit and develop in the weight program and get them behind these other guys and learn a little bit before having to, throw them into the fire. So, a big get with Damieon George. Carl Scott did a good job there. He's from the Houston area and has that connection with those kids there. And as far as it goes with Damieon George and his connection to Zach Evans, the number one running back in the country, if you caught Chris Hummer's report on 24/7 Sports on Friday, he asked Zach Evans last week when he was at his high school, are he Damieon George playing together? And he said, yes, they're a package deal. So, you look at it, he hasn't committed yet or anything, but you got to like the sound of that if you're an Alabama fan as far as their status with five-star running back Zach Evans.
Now let's talk about Demouy Kennedy. Here in the last 24 hours, he has cast his lot to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Watching a little bit of his junior tape, hard not to draw the parallels to another famous alum from Theodore High School down there in the Mobile area, that, of course, being C.J. Mosley. But versatility, Hank, might that be the word that best describes Demouy Kennedy and his commitment to Alabama for the class of 2020?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's ultimately what sold Alabama for him over LSU. Talking to him yesterday, he said the fact that Alabama wants to use him as kind of that hybrid linebacker that can do more than just rush the passer, which is what LSU wanted him to do, that's what he liked. He said he knew he wanted to go to Alabama when Pete Golding told him he was going to use him like Dylan Moses. And so that was kind of all he needed to hear. And a really big get. I love this kid's film. Even when he was committed to Auburn, I was kind of tracking him and watching his film. And, if you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor and go check it out. He kind of does. He does it all. He's a pretty ferocious linebacker, but big time get. They kind of just, I wrote about it yesterday. They're filling up the linebacker pretty quick, and it's not just with guys. They're getting an elite linebackers class. It's kind of similar to kind of how elite the defensive line class was in 2019. Is how this linebackers class is shaping up in 2020. So a really big addition with Demouy Kennedy, and possibly even bigger is. He said he's shutting his recruitment down. You don't hear that a lot from kids committing this early on, even if you consider it early for 2020. He said he's not taking any more visits. He's only going to visit Alabama, and he's going to focus on his senior year. So, an added plus for Alabama fans there.
Yeah, Kennedy is a twitchy cat. If you haven't checked out that junior tape, great closing speed, great change of direction, can play in space, can rush the passer. Again, a guy who I see some Rashaan Evans in, and you watch him on special teams in high school. This is a guy, he's going to cover kicks from day one. at Alabama. I can promise you that, because he's similar. He's produced on the high school level anyway some clips similar to what you saw from Reuben Foster at LSU in 2014 on the hit on Leonard Fournette, and then a couple of years ago what you saw Mac Wilson do to Speedy Noyle of Texas A&M. That's kind of what comes to mind, the sort of violence that Demouy Kennedy plays with. So you said it. It's a linebacker class that's filling up quickly. I guess one of the good things for this Alabama staff, been able to do a lot of it shopping in state once again this year, but certainly some big fish out of state. I guess one already in the boat, but a couple others out there, Hank, at the linebacker position that Alabama would like to close with there in that group.
Yeah, there's still, and I did a feature, a story up on BamaOnline, kind of where they stand with linebacker recruiting, and there's still several guys that they're very much in the mix for, and it starts, as far as this weekend goes. Will Anderson, he's an edge rusher from the state of Georgia. He actually named Alabama his leader last week prior to taking a visit over the weekend, and, we had him on commitment watch, obviously. He named Bama his top school and then went on a visit. That's kind of always basis to put someone on commitment watch. He didn't announce a commitment, but I think Bama even strengthened their position with Will Anderson, who's a top 100 player out of the state of Georgia. So if you factor him into the equation, you would think how many more guys can they take? But it is only June. You got to keep recruiting the position, and you still got guys out there like Justin Flowe, the number one inside linebacker in the country, that's going to take an official visit to Alabama. You've got guys like Savell Smalls, the number one outside linebacker in the country, that's planning to visit at some point in the near future. So, there's plenty of options remaining. I don't think it's going to slow down much, even if they have this high number of commitments at the linebacker position, because, like I said, it is only June, and a lot of guys are still taking visits and listening to other schools.
Alabama now with 19 commitments, Hank, for the 2020 recruiting cycle. What's the capacity for this class as it sits right now? We know that can change. That's subject to change. It's fluid, but a sort of roundabout number that Alabama is looking at total for 2020.
Yeah, we've. I think that's still to be determined, depending on how the transfer portal goes for Alabama, as far as still wrapping up the 2019 class in that regard. But I've been saying, it's going to be a full class in my opinion. 25, 26, I think is a safe guesstimate to go off of. And if you look at that, you think, only 6 or 7 more commitments. Well, I don't think you should necessarily look at it like that. Because you just mentioned it is fluid. There's always class attrition. I think most of the commitments are still taking visits. We saw Bama commits on campus at Ole Miss this weekend. At Tennessee and all that. So I think 25 or 26 is a good estimate. But we'll see as we kind of go further along in the process.
Any chance, in your opinion, at this point, to run down Clemson for the number 1 class overall for 2020?
I was looking at it yesterday, and they're really not. Alabama's really not that far behind. For as big of a gap as Clemson created for itself in the last couple months with all their 5-star commits, I was kind of running the numbers yesterday, looking just doing hypotheticals. If Zach Evans committed, if Will Anderson committed, if a guy like Quandarius Robinson, who's another top 100 player, committed, they would take Clemson over for the number 1 class. So, they're still in the hunt there. It's going to be close just with the guys Clemson is still recruiting as well. But, it's not out of the question that Bama could overtake Clemson at some point in 2020.
Talking with Hank South, the recruiting analyst, does an outstanding job for BamaOnline.com. If you haven't already today, first thing this morning, Hank hits you with a BOL insider at BOL. Tide recruiting intel after a busy weekend. Do yourself a favor, and if you aren't already, become a BamaOnline.com member and check out this great piece from Hank that is up right now on the front page at BamaOnline.com. Hey, Hank, what about the quarterback situation? Not to get too in depth about it, but we've talked a lot about it in the last few months. And it's centered largely around a guy who's already committed to a Pac-12 school in Bryce Young. Is that still the focal point, in your opinion, for Alabama at the position? Who is the focal point for Alabama at the quarterback spot?
I think so, and obviously they're going to have guys at camp throw for him and continue to evaluate the position. They're always looking, but I think Bryce Young is still a very big target for them. And, checking in with his camp, the thought was he was going to visit this summer. He even said it in an interview earlier in the spring. That does not look to be the case right now. I think he's pretty focused on USC as far as, honoring that commitment and not really trying to waver from it or make a big deal about taking other visits. So you got to respect that in that sense. But, there's still a lot of communication between Bryce Young's family and Alabama, whether it be Nick Saban or Steve Sarkisian. They're still recruiting him very hard. So, it's not totally, he's still a big target. He's still a tough target for Alabama. I think it's going to come down to, what happens with USC this year. Because a lot of people have Clay Helton on the hot seat. This is a make-or-break year for him. He's had some luck go his way the last few weeks with this transfer portal stuff with a few guys in and up at USC. So maybe that helps him this year. But, if things go south for USC this season, I think it might get interesting. I think it could get interesting with Bryce Young as far as, where his commitment stands today. But for now, he's a firm commit. He has been, but he's still a big target for Alabama.
The quarterback position in general, is it me or does it seem like Alabama's getting a lot of offers out at that spot for 2021, 2022 even, I guess, looking down the road? And we've seen it in 2 of the last 3 years that Alabama has stacked 2 quarterbacks in classes. Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones in 2017, most recently Talia Tagovailoa, Paul Tyson. Do you think that's with the movement we see, especially at that position, in the transfer portal, is that going to become a common occurrence, you think? At least maybe once every couple of years you see Alabama try to bring in 2 quarterbacks in a class?
Yeah, especially nowadays, we've seen just the entire college quarterback landscape shift in one season. I mean, if you look back at last year, nobody would have really thought Justin Fields would be at Ohio State, Tate Martell at Miami, and all the kind of change that just happened in the last 12 months. So I think that's a safe thing to think that's going to happen every few years, just as far as what your quarterback room looks like at the moment and what you're going for. I don't think it's out of the question that you want to get as many guys as you can, just in case a possibility with that transfer portal being there and how easy it is for guys to kind of just enter their name into it. So they have put a lot of offers out in 2021. We're still kind of seeing how 2020 is going to shape up and who they're going to get if they take somebody. But yeah, it seems like this first camp, the first couple of weeks of June, they've really been focusing on that 2021 position, and like thinking of 2022 as far as offering quarterbacks. One interesting one, Jalen out of Houston, Jalen Milroe, actually named him his leader when we talked to him last week. He had a really good camp the Monday before last, I guess a week ago, when he threw for the staff, and he named him his leader early on. So, he's the number 3 quarterback in the country already, high on Alabama and thinking about the Tide. So I think no matter what happens in 2020, they have a pretty solid room right now with the guys on board. If they get Bryce Young, that would be pretty great for their efforts. But it looks like 2021 is going to be a good year for them under center as well.
Crazy when you think about all the movement of quarterbacks just in the last 5 years. Jacob Eason from Georgia to Washington, Jalen Hurts from Alabama to Oklahoma, Shea Patterson from Ole Miss to Michigan, Baker Mayfield from Texas Tech to OU, Kyler Murray, one of those guys that moved along. DeAndre Francois has moved on from Florida State. It just seems like it's expected at this point. Jarrett Stidham going from Baylor to Auburn. So, yeah, I think it's here to stay, no doubt about it, and going to have to be added emphasis on those quarterback numbers on a semi-annual basis. Well, again, great work as always by Hank South, recruiting analyst for BamaOnline.com. Again, go to BOL right now. He's got his BOL Insider piece up for you, recruiting intel after a busy weekend. Hank, as always, appreciate your help here on the show.